Hi guys, so today's experience is this machine. I'll get this up on the bench in a second. I'll get you on the proper microphone as well. This belongs to a customer. It's used for monitoring a press, and it is a power but does not boot. So we're going to have a look at it. It's probably going to be power supply related. It usually is on these. But we'll tear it open and have a look. I have a feeling it's going to be positively grim in here with paper dust. But let's get it on the bench and let's have a look. Right, unfortunately you're not going to be able to see the whole thing on this. So I have powered it up and it quite simply does nothing. It ignores the input from the power button. So the usual thing on these, especially on the slightly older machines like this, is power supplies. We have had one which I've done on the channel which turned out to actually be a logic board. That's always a possibility. Unfortunately the whole thing does not fit into the image. We've got a power switch assembly there which I'm slightly concerned of might make getting the back off not only difficult but might make working on it with the back off difficult. Old trick we used to use with doing ye olde CRT TVs was we'd put a mirror on the back of our bench, and unfortunately where these things have to lie flat, especially when you don't get a stand, as is the case with this one, it's a bit difficult to do. So there's a lot of lifting one edge up and peering underneath to see if there's any life. There are lots of screws in this. I believe the reasoning behind having a quick look at this and seeing if it's fixable is if I remember correctly, the press has got a cutout in the back of the workstation where this sits in, so if we can't rescue this then it's a case of finding something exactly the same size. I think I've got all the screws out. We've just got one over here that won't come out. Right, let's just pick a bit to pry on. Okay, we're not moving. We've missed one. There's an awful lot of paper dust just come out of the side of this as well. Where is it? I believe it's not actually paper dust. The customer did explain to me. I think it's actually chalk or something similar that they use to keep things moving. I don't know if you can see all of that that's just come out of there. Oh, okay. Well, this is going to be confusing as hell. And isn't going to make for an easier job. So it appears that we're taking the bezel off. Oh, so much dust. There is something. Oh, there is a control panel back here. How on earth are you supposed to do this one? There we go. So we've got up on end. Let's see where we're going with this one. Excuse me. So we've got something stopping this from coming off. We've missed possibly a screw on the control board there. Don't think that's us though. I think we've got screws or something still in somewhere. There we go. right in between the phono connectors. Much easier. Oh dear Lord, that's not good. Pop these two somewhere safe. Get you centered up and zoom you down onto what I can see. So you can see there that that is pretty horrendous. Now there are some things I can see here which worry me slightly before we even start. I don't see any burst caps yet, but I can see a lot of dust, say paper dust, that's been brought in, and I actually can see there's at least one cap gone there. So I think before we even go any further on this, I'm going to take this main power board out and we'll have a good look over that, and hopefully that's all we've got to look at. It's not been powered on in the last couple of days, so I'm not overly worried about that. This is a CFCL backlit screen, not an LED, so it's probably fast approaching the end of its life anyway. We will try and rescue it. Don't recognise the digital board. Are we out? Yep, right. So we've got a cap there that's, focus where I want you to, please. We've got a cap here that's quite badly domed, and then it really is quite crusty. That's not going to help. The dust itself may not be conductive. Where are we? Let's try and navigate my way around the board. There you go. So the dust itself may not be conductive, but once there's moisture involved, it will be. So we need to give that a really good clean up. Oh, yeah. So let me just zoom you out. So yeah, we're going to need to do something with that as well. There are no signs of anything having burnt out or exploded, no skid marks. So I'm hoping that that's our problem. A lot of these newer machines, they quite helpfully give you the pinouts. So let's just have a look, see where that cap goes. I believe we might have another one just in there that's gone as well. So that cap there is on that line, that goes out on the grounds. There's a coil, so that's the 12 volt supply, so we've probably got lots and lots of ripple on the 12 volt supply, which is not going to be good. I will see if I've got everything I need to completely recap this. I'm not, come on, focus in. I'm not massively happy about this one. Or the one next to it. What are we looking at? Never heard of them. Elite brand. 1000 microfarad, 16 volts. And 560 microfarad, 35 volts in there. So certainly those three need changing, I think, to be safe. Looks like one of the aluminium surface mounts that's been mounted through the pins. That's probably fine. And again, we've got the switch mode, I believe that's the switch mode controller. Yeah, we've got a switch mode controller in here, which will probably be a well-known type. Yep, that rings a bell. And again, that's absolutely caked in this dust. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the telly off my desk, so I've got some space and I can zoom you down a bit more. Before I bring you back, I'm going to quickly go over this with a brush and a vacuum, get Grandad Henry on it, and hopefully we'll be able to see what's going on, and I will, before I bring you back, just generally clean the chassis out as well. So I'll be back shortly. Right, so there we go. Much better. I've had a good look over the board. I can't see anything that looks bad or particularly screwed. We've just got this one cap here, and what we're going to do is going to pop these three off, and we're going to meter them all. And then I think might take this one as well, but certainly that one has to go. Pop these two off and check them, and if we can see significant deviation on the values on these, then we'll probably recap the whole board. Let's go. There's our, we'll just quickly excuse me, so we want that cap there. Just put a bit of flux on there, and we'll just melt that solder. And then we can just wiggle that cap off the board. Right. Place your bets. If I can get this into the tester. Well, that's not a good sign. We're definitely making good contact there. Try again. No, we're not happy with that cap. Let me just grab the multimeter. Can you see that? You can. Let's see what we get. That's not looking really good. Really that good, is it? Let's just reverse it. So I'm just having problems with pins. Okay, let's just have a look on it this way. So there is some level of charging going on there. But regardless, that is toast. So we'll just clean those holes out. In trouble with solder suckers. As much as I'd love a solder pool, the old green, oh, the old faithful green RS solder sucker has been a staple of this place for years. Try again. There we go. If you're using a solder sucker, it's always worth being a bit careful. If you've got your soldering iron pressed down onto the pad, can I zoom you in a bit? Just a bit more. If you've got the soldering iron pressed down on the pad, it's actually possible for you to pop the pad off, or at least damage it using the solder sucker. The solder sucker pushes down quite fiercely on everything on the pad. So what have we got to play with here? We need one of them. Focus for me, anyone? Focus, maybe? Too close? Oh Lord knows, it ain't going to focus on it. So we need 560 microfarads at 35 volts. That's an unusual one. I don't think I have anything like that. Certainly not here. Let me go have a look somewhere else. Bear with me. Right, so I managed to find one. Buried deep away in the stash. It's a much larger can, so I'm hoping we'll be okay. There's not a lot of space being used here. So we'll pop that in. Spray the legs. And just solder that in there. Right, I want to check one of these smaller ones. The new cap I have checked on the tester and it shows absolutely fine. I know a lot of YouTubers do use those testers, but I never really have. That one's purchased over a year ago and it's been used maybe a couple of times, and certainly not on anything high value like this. So I just wanted to make sure that it was indeed doing what it was supposed to be doing. That's the way it's supposed to go. There's still muck all over my bench. So let's try it with this one. So what have we got? Will it focus on this? Doubt it. Doesn't seem to want to focus on anything I want it to focus on. So that's a 100 mic 50 volts. So I need to check my cap kits because... So that's 100 mic 50 volts. I need to check my cap kits because I don't have quite the values that I'd like to have. I might have to go and straighten these out a bit. Let's see what we get here. Can you see that? I think you can. Straight away, that says 100 mic. So that one is fine. So we'll pop him back in. And I think what we will do is we will have a close look at all the other ones. And to be honest, I could go through and recap this, but there doesn't seem to be any sign of any other problems. That cap reads absolutely fine. That's a horrible looking joint. Get a bit more heat on there. There doesn't seem to be any sign, certainly on that other cap, of there being a problem. So I'm not sure recapping it is worth it. And you've got to think about the expense to the customer as well. If I blow a couple of hours recapping this, although to be fair, there may not be a couple of hours worth of work there, but then I've got to charge for the caps and everything else, plus my time, which is not cheap, and you're quite quickly over £100 into a TV that really isn't worth it. So, quick visual now. We're just looking for things that look like they're unhappy still. There's a bit of gunk under there. Main reservoir caps aren't bulged or showing any issues. Certainly having any large amount of noise on the 12 volts, which is, what are we generating here? 24 volts, power supply on, 5 volts, 5 volts, 12 volts. 12 volts is almost certainly going to be used for generating various other rails on the control board, I'd have thought, so that's more than capable of causing a problem. What we will do is just quickly nip up those because they look a bit loose. That's the power connector. I'd say everything else on here looks good, but everything else on here looks good by the standards of mass production standards. I mean, I'm quite picky about the way my solder joints look and the way stuff looks, so yeah, this all looks horrible. So I'm going to save you watching me go nuts on this with isopropyl and just cleaning up around here, and I'll bring you back when we've dropped the board back in the machine in a second, and we'll see if this worked. Right, so moment of truth. Down here is the power LED. So power LED's a bit shorter than I'd like. Right, well, good start is we've not gone bang. That's always good. So we have a flashing power light. But I think that's all we actually had. Let's just lift up a little, see if we've got any signs of life back here. I think we actually do. I thought we did. Right, something's happening. And we have life. And apparently this is stuck in Polish. Right, so we appear to be back. So what happens now is this goes back into the chassis. We clip the chassis back together. We don't put any screws in just yet. And then I will provide this with a video signal, and this will run for 24 hours to make sure it's fine. Couple of tips for you. Obviously with something this size it's hard to do, but ideally while you're working on a live machine like this, one hand. Keep the other hand behind your back, on your hip or somewhere out of the way. The reason being is what will kill you is if you get the shock across your chest. If you've got one hand down here, the current is going to flow down your body and it reduces the chance that it's going to flow across your heart. High voltage DC in these things, don't assume because it's modern low power electronics so that it can't kill you. It really can. With this amount of metalwork here, it's not earthed, but it could be earthed through your bench, it could be earthed on the TV that you're working on, and obviously there's a leakage path back to neutral as well. So, it would be easy to have one hand here and touch the power supply. There's probably more than likely enough power in this to actually cause some serious damage now as well. They do tend to put bleed off resistors on these. But if you can see it there, that's only just bleeding away now. That's still 50 volts, which means there may be more across the bank if they're in series. Just treat them with respect and assume they're always charged. We had an incident many years ago, I'm talking 97 I think, possibly earlier. We had a power supply come back from a job in Scotland. it was a Christmas job. The power supply came back. It was a frame power supply. No, it wasn't. It was a bare board power supply. It got put in an anti-static bag and put in the cupboard because no one wanted to deal with it on Christmas Eve. Fast forward 6 months later, and our service engineer drags the power supply out of the bag, can't remember where it came from, drops it on the bench and promptly blows a hole in the anti-static mat. For 6 months that thing had managed to hold enough power to do damage to the anti-static mat. So don't assume that they've got the bleed off resistors, and don't assume that they're safe. Always, if you're really unsure or you don't know the piece of equipment, I've dealt with these power supplies before, put a meter across those reservoir caps and make sure they are actually discharged. So what I need to do now is get the back on this, try and work out how to get all those damn clips back in, and we'll get an HDMI source. I'll probably use one of the Raspberry Pis that's kicking around here, and just let this run for 24 hours. The idea being that if there are any faults that are being caused by dry joints, we'll catch them, and if there's any other issues that might signal that this machine is perhaps not as happy as it could be, we'll catch that. Being CFCL, you can't really see, but you've got your high voltage feeds here. This won't necessarily kill you, but it will be uncomfortable. But going back to the fact that it's CFCL, the tubes in these do have a finite life, so we don't know how much life this has actually got left. So again, we want to run it just for a short while to make sure we've got no dark spots, no banding or other old screen artifacts caused by the backlights being on the way out. So I'm going to pop this back in the case. I'll bring you back once more to show you it's working, and then I think we're done for this video. I know I said I wouldn't be back until we screwed this together, but I just thought I'd share another little tip for you if you are doing repairs on flat panel monitors and things. If you've had to take the bezel off like we did with this one, and you're going to clean the screen, to be fair, if you're doing customer repairs, you should be cleaning the equipment before it goes back. The customers feel better about it when their equipment arrives back looking shiny and new. It doesn't take long. But a good trick to know if you're cleaning LCDs and things like this is before you put the bezel on, clean the bezel, which makes sense, it's easy to do it when it's not on the screen, but clean the screen before the bezel goes back on, because once the bezel's back on, all the little bits in the corners that are difficult to get a cloth into, you will struggle to clean. If you clean them before the bezel goes on, you'll do a lot better job. It also gives you an idea to get a look at the state of the screen, gives you a chance to look at the state of the screen. This monitor will not be repaired again because there is actually damage. You can't unfortunately see it, but there is actually damage on the screen already. So it really needs a new panel. It's not worth doing any more work on. So if the customer gets another year out of it, say it's end of life technology, so if we can buy them another year, then they'll be happy. You know, every year that this does, the price of replacement drops, so win-win. Anyway, let's flip it round, power it on and see what happens. So we're running again. There's a couple of things that strike me here straight away. If I just pause this here, or wind it back, that's fine. So we have banding going on here. This isn't an artifact of the camera. It's not an artifact of the input. This is banding, which means that combined with the fact that down, you can't see it, down in this corner we've got a dim patch, and up in that corner we've got a dim patch, suggests that the CFCLs in this are about done. So this is going to go back to the customer with a note that this one is probably about finished now. But there you go, it's done, it's working. It was just a cap. Again, if you just watch the white sections of the video, you'll see the banding. But yeah, it was just a cap. It was that easy. Change the cap. But you have to weigh up the pros and cons of doing a repair. If I'd have gone to the effort of recapping this, then I would have been quite disappointed to discover the marks on the screen. no, they're not marks on the screen, it's banding on the caused by the CFCLs, and even on the black I can see it. It needs to be replaced with an LED technology, or even, well, to be fair, an OLED is overkill for where it is, but certainly a LED screen would be a replacement on this. And CFCLs aren't quite as good as on power as LEDs are. The other thing to notice, it's not very clear on the video because of the white correction, but the whites on here are not particularly white. If I can, that there, you can see the difference in colour quite differently. If I go there, you can see the colour and difference quite strongly. The white on here is much warmer, which again could be a sign that CFCLs are about done for. So there, we've rescued that one for now. Long term, I think this one's on borrowed time. The location it's in is not a particularly good location for electronics, as you've seen by the amount of chalk dust that was removed from it. But yeah, if it buys them another year of use, then potentially it saves them a few pounds. So we'll leave this running now, and that's it for this one. Thank you for coming along.